Hey guys, I'm MG, and today I'll be looking at Captain America the First Avenger, which is a 2011 American superhero film that is based on the comic with the same name, which was directed by Joe Johnston and written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and it stars Chris Evans as the titular character, which is about him fighting in war and saving the world. However, why don't we stop punching and start reviewing right now? This film is a really neat origin story for Captain America, and it adapts the story really nicely. That kept me intrigued for the entire runtime. And on its own, it's really solid as well. Does that mean it's great? Not really. As much as I like this film, there wasn't many things that were outstanding, unlike an X-Men First Class, with where it had a really neat inequality theme. With this, the war theme doesn't feel as grand as it should be, since, well, the war was hell for everyone, and this movie doesn't show that very much. We're only told about it, without actually seeing it for ourselves. And if there were more of those scenes, then the stakes would have been significantly higher. Because right now, you don't really feel the impact of it, or basically anything, since this movie doesn't show those themes enough, and more action scenes with war fights would have been welcome. So that's kind of disappointing. Another thing I wasn't huge on was the romance, because it's barely focused on. Steve and Peggy don't have much chemistry, and they seem more like close friends than a couple. But compared to some of the poorly executed romantic stuff with Tony and Bruce, this is definitely an improvement. And their final scene was really sad, so not too bad. Most of the characters were pretty standard and uninteresting as well. I like Steve, with a really good performance from Chris Evans, but he's not really a top tier protagonist. Peggy was very underdeveloped, but she has her moments. Bucky wasn't that fun, and Red Skull is a decent enough villain, with a decent performance from Hugo Weaving, but I still didn't feel the weight of his presence, outside of the opening scene, which was pretty raw. The music by Alan Silvestri was a bit forgettable, with where it does its job well enough, but none of it will stick with me unfortunately. Yeah, this movie really lacks the weight it so heavily deserved, because it does make the adventure not as dangerous or investing as it could have been, so that's kind of a bummer. But outside of that, I still had a really good time with this movie. The action was mostly pretty great, with all of the set pieces having a good amount of tension that kept me invested the whole way through. The final fight was kind of weak, like both characters are literally just wrestling, but it's not bad. And this film does an outstanding job of depicting the 1940s time period. All the sets look really naturalistic, while also not leaning too heavily on the superhero stuff, which is always appreciated. The directing by Joe Johnston was really good, and he does a wonderful job into making this film exciting as it should be. The visual effects have a couple of iffy shots, but most of them look really solid, so that's okay. This film manages to balance a supernatural and war theme pretty well, even though neither of them are that effective. And the pacing is pretty strong for a 2-hour film, so that's neat. But the greatest scene in the whole film, where I would outright call it fantastic, is the musical number. The song is just very fun, filled with some cool editing and astounding production design, with it making the whole experience very satisfying. Overall, this is likable enough, and I had a pretty good time with it, but its lack of weight towards pretty much everything really makes the experience worse. But oh well, it was still a worthwhile addition to the MCU, and I would highly recommend it for everyone, so go ahead and watch it. 7.5 out of 10. Goodbye everyone, and thank you for watching. Bye.